cool. And
Right now on the National Weather Desk. Right now on the National Weather Desk, flash flooding. Historic rainfall washes away Spanish villages as the search for survivors goes on.
It all happened very suddenly.
There's 1 month left in hurricane season, but find out why November storms aren't that common.
Hurricanes will not form when the upper level winds are too strong.
We'll go in depth to learn more about the perfect storm that formed 33 years ago.
This merge created a nor'easter so strong that it absorbed a now tropical storm Grace, creating a powerhouse storm.
On this Halloween, we'll help you overcome some of your weather phobias.
Things like storms, tornadoes, right? Hail damage.
And why tonight's weather won't be very frightful for many trick-or-treaters.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. At least 95 people are dead following historic flash flooding that ravaged southeastern Spain. That number is likely to rise because bodies of victims are still trapped in cars. Others are listed as missing. The search for survivors continues this morning with rescue teams climbing through debris looking for people. The rushing water wiped out small villages, destroying everything in its path. Mud and brown water fills streets in the Valencia region. This all happened after a year's worth of rain fell in just 8 hours. Rescuers took to the water and sky to find people. Many survivors were airlifted by helicopter to safety. Here you can see a woman along with her dog and cat on the roof of their home. And water completely surrounds many buildings. Nearby, a horse is trying to swim to safety. There it is, and then there are cars which are piled up throughout the region. They had nowhere to go when the water started rising.
This riverbed beside me is normally completely dry. It is now almost halfway full and broke through the banks on the other side, and lines of cars had to be abandoned. Many of the highways here were completely unusable.
The region is known for its exported produce, especially oranges. This morning, many of those fields are ruined. Typhoon Kangray made landfall in Taiwan today. It was the equivalent of a Category 3 hurricane, making it the most powerful storm to hit the island in nearly 30 years. Thousands of people evacuated 13 cities. At least one person has died. And tracking the tropics, we continue to monitor a disturbance in the Caribbean. It's located between Jamaica and South America. Chances of development have increased slightly since yesterday, with the National Hurricane Center saying there is now a 50% chance the system becomes a named storm within the next week. If that happens, it will be given the name Patty, as in short for Patricia, not Patty short for Patrick. The hurricane season is winding down as we end October. A November hurricane is not impossible, but as meteorologist Kit Alexander explains, weather conditions make them much less likely.
The hurricane season runs through the end of November, and while it's rare to get a storm to impact the continental U.S. this time of year, it's not impossible. When it comes to tropical development, one of the most important factors is wind shear. Wind shear has to be low for a hurricane to develop. Wind shear is simply a change in wind speed and direction with height. If you look at this GOES 16 satellite imagery from earlier this week, you can literally see wind shear based on the clouds. In this case, we see clouds moving from the northeast to the southwest, but there's also clouds moving from the southwest to the northeast. To see what is really going on, here's a look at a weather sounding. A weather sounding just simply shows a profile of the atmosphere at a certain time. This sounding from MCO, or Orlando International Airport, shows winds from the northeast heading to the southwest. But notice how the winds are blowing strongly from the southwest in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This is a practical example which shows there is quite a bit of shear in the atmosphere at this location. In other words, if you were standing in Central Florida at this time, you would notice the clouds literally blowing from one direction at one height, and at another height, the clouds would be blowing at another direction. When it comes to hurricanes, strong upper-level winds destroy the storm structure by displacing warm temperatures above the eye and limiting vertical ascent of air. To make a long story short, hurricanes will not form when the upper-level winds are too strong.
And of course, it's Halloween. Remember going trick-or-treating decades ago and you may have resisted your parents' push to wear a jacket over your costume? There's a little chance of that happening in the eastern half of the country tonight because it could be one of the warmest Halloweens on record. That's especially true in the Northeast, where records could fall in New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. Here at the National Weather Desk in Washington, D.C., the mercury will hit 80 degrees, the warmest in 50 years. The Midwest will also enjoy unseasonable temperatures, but a cold front will keep temperatures down in the northern plains. And that won't be the case for trick-or-treaters in Anchorage, Alaska. The city experienced a record-breaking October snowstorm earlier this week. Some areas saw up to a foot of snow. Snow-covered roads are forcing schools in the area to switch to remote learning, and snow plowing has been an issue for the city, with the mayor's warning that aging snow removal equipment is slowing down the cleanup. Now to wildfires. Several of them erupted in Oklahoma this week. Multiple structures, including homes and businesses, have been destroyed, and thousands of acres have been burned. Tom Ferguson looks at how the weather made battling the flames more difficult.
Wind whipping up the smoke around this structure still smoldering that burned to the ground. Crews continue to respond to hot spots into Wednesday afternoon and evening after starting to battle the flames on Tuesday.
You know, it's just been a really busy disaster season.
As severe weather systems moved into the area, crews had to cope with high winds and lightning strikes, possibly setting the dry ground ablaze again.
This kind of thing really is something that we're ready for year-round. We have great volunteers throughout Oklahoma that are ready to step up and serve at a moment's notice.
And here you can see the aftermath of this wildfire. We actually still have some hot spots right next to me to my right. You can see a small flame still going on the ground. Moving a little bit further to the right, you can see large amounts of smoke rising from the roadside. And even a little further on, you can see trees in the wooded area that have been completely burned out.
We have volunteers who have deployed to the southeastern United States to help with hurricanes. And then they've come back to help with local disasters like these wildfires.
And this week marks 33 years since The Perfect Storm, not the movie, but the real-life system that inspired the book and the Hollywood movie. Meteorologist Emily Santom explains why the storm earned that name.
In the last week of October 1991, 3 major weather systems came together to form what NOAA meteorologists refer to as the perfect storm. Right around October 28th, there was the recently formed Category 2 Hurricane Grace moving along the East Coast. At that same time, a cold front was passing over New England before merging with a very strong high-pressure front building over southeast Canada. This merge created a nor'easter so strong that it absorbed a now tropical storm Grace, creating a powerhouse storm. I spoke with meteorologist Joe Sinkowitz, who is now the chief of the Ocean Applications Branch at the Ocean Prediction Center for NOAA. But before that, he forecasted this storm from start to finish.
It was short-lived. It actually moved east and northeastward. It actually was a flight in it, and it had 85 knots of wind. But again, it was a very small, it literally is the unnamed hurricane of 91.
What would have been a Category 1 Hurricane Henri was left without a name to keep from confusing the public. And it turned out rainfall was not the main focus for the coastline.
This was a wave, for New England, this was a wave and coastal inundation event. But high tide because of the storm, but then also waves, big waves on top of that.
It generated large waves as far south as Florida and the Caribbean. Windows at former President George H.W. Bush's home in Kennebunkport were blown out and water flooded the ground floor. Maine was left with $3 million in damages, but out in the open ocean, the waves were unimaginable.
The buoy observations as the event was ongoing were just shocking as to how high the buoy waves were. But a maximum wave of 99 feet, that is just hard to fathom.
That's as tall as a 10-story building. Sikowitz said that the wave was recorded by an ocean buoy located in the western Canadian waters, right near where the famous Andrea Gale fishing boat was last heard from. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Emily Santam.
Now take a look at this. These are the final moments of the Halloween comet. NASA's Solar and Heliospheric Observatory spacecraft captured these images as the comet disintegrated close to the sun earlier this week. Astronomers first discovered the glowing celestial body on September 27th. According to NASA, the comet broke apart over the past few days into chunks until it finally evaporated. It earned the name Halloween Comet after speculation that it could be visible in the night towards the end of the month. Coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll learn about common weather phobias and the best ways to overcome the fear.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. Check out these temps in the Northeast today. It's going to be a warm one. Your Halloween should be one of the warmest on record for most communities. We'll be in the 70s to near 80 degrees with a lot of sun. That warm front from yesterday that has made its way off to the north. Notice a lot of sunshine, 1:30 in the afternoon. It's going to be a warm one with the cold front swinging through early Friday. You might get a quick shower with that feature. One more mild day is on tap for Friday with temps in the 70s. Cooler air invades over the weekend.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabala. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Dry through your Halloween, but we do have a front approaching to bring a couple of showers with it. Not a very big rainmaker, but it will bring some cooler air. And again, a couple of light showers across the region on your Friday morning. It'll still be a very warm day for Halloween. Highs near 80 degrees, except some regions into the mountains up in the 70s. We'll still hit the 70s on Friday, but likely going to be much cooler going into your Saturday.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast. Highs for the day, 78 degrees in Nashville, 79 Atlanta, 82 in Mobile, Jacksonville about 82 degrees, 86 in Tampa. High pressure keeping us nice and clear as of now, but we do have a frontal boundary that's going to be pushing in, sparking some gusty storms, especially along the Mississippi Delta up there near Jackson, as well as Memphis as we go through the afternoon. This front will continue to push on down, bringing with it cooler temperatures behind it, but high pressure is going to continue to break up some of those showers through the next day.
Watching the National Weather Desk.
Halloween celebrates scary things for sure, but for some people, thunderstorms can be scary. Others have a debilitating fear that can keep them from going outside even on a calm day. Some other people have a fear of wind or snow or even the sun. Emily Gracie recently spoke to an expert to find out the best way to treat your weather-related phobias.
If you think about a phobia, there's a difference between a fear and a phobia, and there's about 50% of the population that has what I would call a subclinical fear of something. And one of the categories of a phobia, ironically, is what we call natural environment type. Well, you can imagine, Emily, what would be included in that. Things like storms, tornadoes, right, hail damage, and things like that. So a lot of people that I actually see clinically, it crosses over to a phobia because it impairs their functioning.
Is more knowledge a good thing? Is becoming a meteorologist, if you're scared of the weather, the solution because you all of a sudden have all the answers?
The gold standard treatment, meaning the best available treatment for a phobia, quite frankly, is what's called exposure therapy, and it's based on what we call cognitive behavioral therapy. So when you mention, do I become a meteorologist to get over this? Well, in essence, Becoming a meteorologist, if I'm afraid of weather, is exposure. Why? Because I'm confronting the very thing I avoid. And that is how you actually get over it. I have to put myself in situations that I think are dangerous that are not in fact dangerous.
How do you differentiate? If you have a fear, how do you know? Because obviously some stuff like tornadoes are dangerous. So how do you differentiate what's real and what's not?
Putting someone in a situation where they could in fact die is obviously not a prudent thing to do. However, putting themselves in a situation where they think they will die, but the likelihood is low, is important.
Do you ever recommend anxiety medication for phobias, or is that just like a Band-Aid on a bigger problem?
It's a great question, Emily. And though I'm not opposed to medication, in fact, we have a psychiatric nurse practitioner on staff. What you find is that medication for a phobia doesn't get rid of a phobia. The gold standard for a phobia treatment is exposure-based therapy, period. Medication can help buffer some of the distress associated with it. But if you really want to reprogram your brain and get over a phobia, you definitely need to do exposure therapy, and that definitely doesn't require medication.
In Texas Hill Country, you'll find Enchanted Rock State Park, an area many people believe to be haunted because of the sounds given off by the massive pink granite dome in the middle of the park. But as meteorologist Chicago Windler found out, those spooky sounds are all about weather.
A lot of people think it's ominous. They walk up and they see this huge pink dome.
It's a 600-acre pink granite dome north of Fredericksburg, the second largest of its kind in the U.S. And Park Superintendent Doug Cochran says it has quite a history.
Native Americans felt that Enchanted Rock had spirits because of the creaking and groaning that they reportedly heard.
I think it's pretty cool. We were telling them about the legends about it on the way here.
Weather plays a huge role in that. The cold and the heat contracts. It makes cracks in the granite. Water gets in there, it freezes, thaws.
And that movement creates a haunting sound.
Who knows what's happened here?
The Native American folklore, there was a chief that sacrificed his daughter, and he was so ridden with guilt that he's walking around, his spirit is still walking around here.
You can clearly see the chief's footprints all over the rock, better known as weathering pits.
And the water comes in and does kind of like a tumbling motion and just starts weathering out these indentions. It could be haunted. They would see glimmering lights on top of the summit, and they thought that those were the spirits.
Actually, the light of the moon reflecting on weathering pits filled with water can cast that eerie glow.
I have heard screams out here. It sounds like a woman screaming at the top of her lungs.
Oh dear, literally.
We know it's an axis bug during mating season.
It's a little spooky. It's a little scary.
If you dare, this cave near the top of the rock might be the spookiest spot to explore.
Sometimes it's completely full of spiders.
Those frightened by critters might bypass the cave, but the 425-foot hike to the top is spellbinding and can't be missed.
Well, this is one of the most beautiful spots in all of the hill country. Enchanted Rock, people come from all over the world to visit here.
And we've made it to the
We've made it to the top.
1,825 feet above sea level and worth every single step.
Magical or like mystical.
In the Texas Hill Country, I'm Chicago Windler for the National Weather Desk.
This time of year isn't just about candy and costumes. For a lot of places, it means the end of peak fall foliage, and now it's time for the leaves to fall off the trees. But what actually causes the leaves to drop, besides gravity? Let's turn to Trevor Rubidoux to find out.
Well, it all starts with understanding why they change color.
All of our hardwood trees are deciduous trees that lose their leaves in the fall, go through a process of kind of senescence. Those leaves go through a process called senescence.
This process involves essentially shifting the energy and sugar in the tree down into the root system in preparation for winter.
The chlorophyll is what makes the leaves green. It's what allows photosynthesis to happen. And as in the fall, they start to get less sunlight, there's less photosynthesis, the chlorophyll starts to leave the leaves, and there's fewer or less chlorophyll in the leaves, and so you see these other colors coming through, not just the green.
With essentially all of the energy transferred to the roots, the leaves dry and wither.
Think about it as the leaf drying up, and then the little point of the petiole where the leaf is attached to the stem detaches, and it doesn't detach immediately, it just kind of weakens that connection. The cells in the leaf are at that point dead.
After the connection weakens considerably and all the leaves die, all it takes is a little push from nature to separate the leaves from the tree.
Leaves don't fall right away. In some cases, it takes like windy conditions, or even some of our trees hold on to them farther into the winter. But usually if we have stormy fall, a windy fall, they'll lose the leaves a lot more quickly.
So you may expect more leaves to fall on a rather windy or rainy day after the peak of fall color.
And as the leaves fall off the trees and a chill settles over many areas, you may think it's the end of fishing season. But as Iowa meteorologist Grayson Freund explains, that's not exactly the case.
When temperatures go down, the fish come out.
Fishing can be really good in the fall, but as the water temperatures get colder, and some fish will start moving to overwintering areas as early as mid to late September. But most years they're in their overwintering areas by early November.
Temperatures are above average so far this season, so fish may be active for a longer period of time. The Iowa DNR says deep running crankbaits and jigs with plastic will work best when fish start moving to their wintering holes. But as water temperatures drop, you'll want to switch to smaller jigs to reel fish in slowly.
Fish use different habitat in the wintertime than they use throughout the rest of the year. They tended to move to deep overwintering holes without a lot of flow through them to spend the winter.
Right now, channel catfish, walleye, and smallmouth bass are the most common species you'll likely catch out there. And you've still got a few good weeks left to cast off.
And as we head to our second break, we soar above Virginia's Rappahannock River, decorated for Halloween.
Well, very good. Thursday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest. We got rain with a cold front moving its way across the Midwest, and even have some snow up here in portions of Minnesota and also northern Wisconsin. Tomorrow, though, the rain continues to push its way to the east. Cool, though, for most of the Midwest for your Friday, and that'll linger on into your Saturday as well with a little bit of rain trying to move back into the southern plains.
Well, a good Thursday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Succi. Look at our forecast today across the region, starting off with some showers and thunderstorms as a frontal boundary drops slowly to the south, and it takes that rain chance with it across Louisiana, a little bit of southeast Texas. Meantime, for the evening, trick-or-treating should be good across most of the region. 60s and 70s, then cooling during the evening. Here's Friday's forecast, and we're looking at temperatures from the 70s and the 80s. Can't rule out a couple of showers through the day, especially in South Texas.
Happy Halloween. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. Temperatures are dipping down below normal into the 40s across the Pacific Northwest. Nice and dry in the Southwest, feeling pretty good. But boy, when this cold front tracks through, it's going to be bringing the Pacific Northwest plenty of lowland rain and lots of mountain snow, up to a foot or more in eastern Oregon and Idaho. That's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
As we get closer and closer to winter, it's time to start thinking about cold weather driving and the hazards that come with it. Meteorologist Grayson Freund spoke to officials in Iowa about tips on how to prepare for the ice months ahead.
The harsh winter weather can take a toll on your vehicle, and there's nothing worse than breaking down in the middle of a snowstorm. Winterizing your vehicle now, checking your wipers, tires, brakes, lights, and fluid levels can help you avoid issues down the road.
Winter is really hard on batteries. And if you suspect your battery might be getting old or is showing symptoms of, having some issues, it might be nicer to do it now when it's generally nice and sunny out rather than walking out your car someday and the battery's not there.
If you ever are stranded in severe weather, it's critical to have an emergency kit in your car, which could save your life and the lives of your passengers in dangerous situations. The best way to keep yourself safe on icy roads is to stay alert, watch your speed, and keep a healthy distance between you and the cars ahead.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Thursday, have a happy and safe Halloween, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for the National Weather Desk.